GeekyKOOL presents Professor and Ace, Episode 6. Hey everybody, this is Larry, also known as the Professor. I'm coming to you live here. We're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars. We have Star Wars Day coming up on next Monday. Next Monday is May the 4th. There was some debate for a while what was really considered Star Wars Day, because May 25th was actually the premiere date of Star Wars. So some people were calling that Star Wars Day, along with being Geek Pride Day. So but we're coming to you live. We're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars. My normal co-host, Ace, will be here shortly. AJ will be here. She's running a little bit late. And so will our other guest for tonight, who's Shpoo from Skallywag Productions. You may have seen his stuff on GeekyKOOL, also out on YouTube. A lot of really funny stuff most of the time. You guys really do want to check that out. We usually do shout out his stuff at the end of the episode, but excited to have both of them come on and talk a little Star Wars. I decided to go ahead and get started because I noticed Facebook actually had a counter that was counting down for when we were supposed to start. So thought we better go ahead and go live. Let you guys get to see me for a couple minutes until they show up. So we'll do that, and then we'll be here. Oh, it looks like we've got Ace joining us now. Hey Ace, welcome to the show. I went ahead and started this because I noticed there was a countdown. So.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I have a new used dryer that was delivered to me today because my dryer's not working, and I was hooking it up. So.
No problem at all. I told you could be late. That was fine. I just I saw the countdown. It was kind of weird because there's no countdown on the site that we use to launch this, but there's a countdown over on the Facebook Live. So I'm like, oh, maybe we should actually start on time, so that way people would see us. We've got one person who likes us so far, but nobody currently watching. So probably because you weren't here, they stopped watching. So
that is not true, Professor. That is not.
Oh, they're all here to catch your beauty. It's true.
We all know
you're the eye candy.
We all know that we do have a very pretty staff writer, and he just happens to not be a girl, and that's Damon. Have you ever seen him?
Oh yeah, I've seen Damon. Yeah, I've met him.
Yeah, but I mean, have you ever seen him in his Elsa cosplay?
I have not seen him in his Elsa cosplay.
So pretty. I'm not even lying. Just like gorgeous. I'm jealous. That bone structure, I can't have that. But yeah. The Skallywag is setting up right now. He was helping me, and so he's setting up in the studio. As you can see, I moved.
Perfect.
So you can see my costume.
I love it. Yeah.
That's my wall.
I love those. You know I do.
I know. It's like this is my DC wall. My Marvel wall isn't quite as extensive because I have a hard time finding the posters. This is actually, most of these came from a book.
Okay,
Don't get mad at me. I actually bought 2 copies of the book, one to keep and one
all right.
to put on my wall. So.
Right. Well, I have a Marvel calendar that I love all the pictures from because they're like classic covers. So I'm like, man, I like to frame all those.
Oh, so go scroll down just a little bit. Skallywag's got a question, and it says, enter studio. He's getting ready to enter the studio.
All right. Well, I see him there now. And welcome. Hey, how's it going?
We want to be this way or that? I'm upside down. Oh, God.
Let's go this way. Let's go the way you are now.
There we go.
Well, welcome to GeekyKOOL Presents. We appreciate you coming on with us, talk a little Star Wars.
Yeah.
And we always thank you for your
trouble. Hang on.
It's different.
Yeah, that'll do.
That works. Okay. So thank you again for coming on. But wanted to talk a little Star Wars since Star Wars Day is next Monday. And so our next show will be after that. So wanted to just kind of talk about some of our favorite things, our least favorite things with Star Wars, our favorite movies, and maybe kind of rank or put out where we the movies we like better versus the ones we don't. But we only have like an hour or so we may not get too involved with it.
Enough time, right?
You would think so, but for us, it rarely is.
I have this two super fans. I know both of you are huge Star Wars fans. I have seen all the movies, but I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. But I've seen all the movies, so at least I can see that. Like I will watch them with my boyfriend.
Well, see, you don't dislike them. You're just not as into them as other things.
Like if somebody's like, "What do you want to do?" and they like suggest Star Wars, I'm like, "Oh, okay," but I will never be the one who suggests Star Wars.
Fair enough. Yeah. Which gives you an interesting perspective because you're not as fanatic about it. So.
Right. Yeah. I have some love and hate moments with Star Wars, and sometimes
don't we all?
Yeah. That's true. But before we get started, I wanted to do just a quick follow-up to last week's episode. We had David Fout on, and David is going to be doing something for Free Comic Book Day, which was supposed to be this weekend coming up. Yep. It has been delayed because of the COVID-19 crisis and or the Corona apocalypse, as I like to call it. David has he's on the show called the Artist Alley Shopping Network, which is a Facebook page. It is a membership page, but it's free to join. And basically, artists go on here and draw and talk about their process. It's all comic book related. There's all sorts of different people that go on here and do different things. It's a pretty cool thing. He's going to be on there on Sunday, 2 to 4 p.m. Central Time, and he will be giving away to anybody that shows up a 17 by 11? I think he said one of his prints that, but it's going to be digital. So it's going to come to you free digitally. So anybody that's interested in that, he will also do digital little quick drawings for you. So if you have something that you would like to do, just like you would if you went to see him at a convention, he'll draw you something really quick. I've got a couple ideas, so I'm looking forward to it. But since Free Comic Book Day has been delayed, he wanted to do something special, so I wanted to give him an extra shout out for that before we started talking Star Wars, since Star Wars Day and Free Comic Book Day are always close together.
I always wanted David to draw me, but he draws pinup, and I don't do pinup very well, so I don't know.
Well, that you might be a really good pinup. You should have him draw you.
We'll think about it. We'll think about it.
Okay. All right. So, all right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to plug in the phone real quick. Hang on. Phone's dying. Let me plug in.
Look.
High five. High five.
There we go. Okay, we're good.
All right.
Sorry.
So to get us started off, let's talk about the good things of Star Wars. Let's talk about our favorite Star Wars movie. What is both of yours favorite Star Wars movies? I know, AJ, it probably isn't real important to you since you're not a big fan, but what's your favorite?
So are we talking of like the Riddler? Can I do like Clone
Wars? All the 11 movies. So just the movies right now.
The movies. The series are
Phantom Menace.
Hey, some people love Phantom Menace. Great in-fight scene.
You know what? If I'm gonna go with it, I'm gonna go with the original, the first one, now called The New Hope, only because it was the first one I watched, and for the time and for when it came out, it was groundbreaking in so many ways, and it holds up. It's a little less, you can tell it was made when it was made, but it still holds up. I appreciate that with movies, especially when they have like a lot of special effects. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the first one.
That's a good one to go with. I can't argue that. So.
Me personally, mine tends to be a little controversial, I guess, but my favorite is actually Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people are kind of anti-Ewok, but I could watch the first half of that movie and then, you know, just take that and then like the space battle at the end, leave out everything else, and I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm with
just
you.
the Jabba stuff alone is worth the watch.
I really agree. I love Return of the Jedi. I love the original trilogy to death. The Return of the Jedi, you know, I tell people I was 6 going on 7 when I saw Star Wars. It blew my mind. It changed the way I viewed movies. It became what I played on the playground with my friends. Empire Strikes Back came out, and it had such a cool thing with Hoth. But when I was 10 years old, or not quite 10 years old, I was watching this in the movie theater, and it ends with Han being taken. And I'm like, no, you're forgetting a reel. Play the next one. You can't end it.
Cinematically speaking, Empire is almost a perfect movie. I mean, it's got it, you know, covers the entire range of emotions. I mean, yes, it does end on a cliffhanger, but like kind of universally, that tends to be the you know, the favorite amongst most fans. And honestly, it's actually kind of further down the list for me for some reason. It's too slow. I find like the whole middle of it especially is just kind of boring to me. I don't hate it by any means. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
No,
what
Empire is just kind of further down the list.
It's all good. So no, I'm with you. The Hoth scene right there, that's worth gold. The Hoth battle, the AT-ATs, seeing all that, that's just so amazing. Luke getting trained, Luke fighting Darth Vader. I mean, those things are really cool. Return of the Jedi. So Return of the Jedi, I'm 12, almost 13. And I get this really cool scene with Jabba's palace. I also get Carrie Fisher in a metal bikini.
Well, of course, yeah, that helped.
And then you got the cool scene at the end where Darth Vader is redeemed. So, you know, I as a 12, 13-year-old, that movie was golden because
it hit all the points for the demographic it was going for, which was like that teenage boy. Like, you put Fisher back in the day in a gold bikini and have her enslaved. Like,
that's actually a really good point. Is that so many Star Wars fans give the prequels and sequels so much flack, but like you have to remember that these are movies for kids. Right. Like it's ingrained in our psyche just because, you know, we grew up with them. But we were kids when they came out. Right. You watch those from a kid's perspective, and that's why so many younger people love the prequels and you know, love the sequels or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, Dakota loved the prequels. He loved them, but he was also like a little kid and growing up with that. Right. Like he wanted to be Anakin.
Right.
He wanted, and so much so that like one year we had a Star Wars bedroom because it was just all about that. But you know, he loves that more than he loves the old ones. So I think it is. It just depends when you were born. When you first saw. And I feel like that's with a lot of movies or TV shows and stuff like that, is like when you're first introduced to them, people tend to like the ones that they see first more if they fall in love with it, because that's the one that got them. And so, yeah, I agree with you on that.
No,
I kind of watch the saga, like all 11, I guess, movies. I watch it as just one really long story. So like back when the prequels were coming out and everybody was, you know, hating on them so much, I said, you know, while it may not be my favorite chapter in the story, it's still part of the story. So love it or hate it, it's there. I always go back to like 1997, I think it was. There was an interview with George Lucas that came out, and this was before they even started production on Phantom Menace. And he was talking about, you know, what the 3 prequels were going to be basically. And he said that the first installment, and this is paraphrasing but quoting as closely as possible, the first installment is basically going to be a cartoon. His words, he called it a cartoon to show the galaxy at its absolute brightest point, so that you go from that down to like Revenge of the Sith or Empire Strikes Back. It makes that fall from grace so much bigger, so much more poignant.
Right. Right.
when you get that contrast in there. So I always looked at it as, I knew that going in, so I always looked at it like Phantom Menace was like that. You know, we got Jar Jar on purpose just to give it a bigger contrast.
Right. I'm with you.
And I would have loved to have seen Jar Jar, just saying.
My favorite one's really become Empire over the years, but yeah, Jar Jar is an annoying, but he plays his role. So
yeah.
No, and I agree. It's all one big story. So
yeah. I would love to know if the Darth Jar Jar thing was in fact the plan. I would have loved to have seen that. That would have been great.
Oh, no doubt. Well, we've lost AJ. Oh, there she is. It's coming back.
It popped over real fast to Facebook and like posted so people could come and talk to us.
Okay, great. Well, we do have a couple of we have a couple of comments already from Amanda.
I can't see any comments or anything, so
I know they're coming up. So here's your first comment from Amanda. It was about the digital print, which is true.
Print and oxymoron.
It is, Amanda, but it also gives you a way to like print it at home and or take it. He's giving you the print right, so you can print it for one.
Blinding bright.
You are very bright.
I am, but I'm trying to figure out like how I can diffuse that a little bit. I don't know.
Here's Amanda's other comment. She
I'm jealous today.
So Amanda loves Return also. Yay!
I'm not the only one. Hey.
No, I'm actually with you. Return of the Jedi was my favorite for years, and then I think once I finally got over the fact they left Empire as a cliffhanger. As a 9-year-old boy waiting 3 years to find out what happened to Han Solo, that's not fair.
Right.
So that kind of ruined Empire for a while. Not ruined it, but
I'm going to try something. I'm still here.
Okay.
No, when you have to wait for, like, people nowadays have no idea. Like, kids nowadays, if you have to wait for binge watch or the little Netflix thing, the pop-up that says, "Are you still watching?" They get like frustrated with that. I'm like, dude, you had to wait like. Now they try to make movies like come out like once a year and stuff like that. But oversaturation. The wasn't there. What?
Oversaturation.
What do you say?
With too many movies too quickly.
Yeah.
Well, my son, who's
it was a really long wait for people to find out, you know, what happened to Han Solo. Like,
right. My son thought who's 11 now, thought he was going to die waiting for with Infinity War, having to wait to see what happened. And he's like, I've got to wait a year. I'm like, dude, 3 years.
Yeah.
And we didn't know. There was no scheduled. We didn't have. And coming in 3 years will be Return of the Jedi. We had no idea when it was coming. We just were sitting there hoping.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
I mean, think back.
Like, can you imagine?
Think back to like 1979. You know, the first one had come out and didn't even know if there was going to be another one. So,
right.
I mean, granted, the first one didn't end on a cliffhanger or anything, but still.
Right. Well,
and I think so many movies die before they can get their sequels or their, you know, before they, just because they don't do so well. I often wonder if Star Wars wouldn't have picked up steam, the first one, as much as it did, and wouldn't have grasped as many people. Like if it came out now, I don't know if we would have got as many movies, because
they wouldn't.
Back then it was one of a kind. It
was,
you know,
it really changed things.
It changed the face of movies forever.
How old were you guys?
We have the term space opera because of Star Wars.
Yeah. So if it came out now, like if there would have been more, like other space kind of shows, and Star Wars hadn't happened, and it came out like 2000s, do you think it would have picked up as much steam as it did when it came out in the 70s?
No, I don't think so.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Me either.
It would have been. I mean, it might have done okay. It might have done all right in the box office. I mean, if Phantom Menace had come out first, no, not at all. But if Star Wars wasn't made until, you know, the 2000s or whatever, or even now, I think it would have done fairly well, but it wouldn't have become like an iconic phenomenon.
Yeah.
How old were you guys when it came out in '77?
I was not born yet.
That's what I figured.
I was born shortly after.
All right. So you've only known it from video on.
I was a baby. I'm a couple years older than you. So
I was a year after it came out.
I was 6, so I wasn't super old when it came out. But I remember seeing on the news showing people lined up for movie theaters around the block waiting to get in, and people that would see it 50 times. They'd interview people. Yeah, I've already seen it 48 times, and I'm going to see it at least 2 more times. It just completely took a country that was divided, not the way we are now, but basically super high gas prices, super bad inflation. The economy was really tanked at that time. It gave people something to rally around, and it really took over society. Society really embraced Star Wars at a level that I've not ever seen a movie embrace since then.
Right.
Maybe
Avatar for some reason, but that's about it. That's a whole other discussion.
Conversation about, like, remember when you had to wait in line for movies? Like, now you buy your ticket and they assign your seat and you don't have. But he actually misses that because you can't do that. You don't get that experience. I remember the first movie I waited in line to see, and this is going to sound weird, but I was also a little kid, and it was just my family had weird movie rules, but was E.T. When E.T. came out, that was a
big movie.
For in line for, I want to say 5.5 hours, which is a huge thing for parents with little kids. Like, dude, I would have.
The whole midnight showing or going to a premiere, it's an event, and I mean, I have so many friends that are like, well, you know, the movie starts in 30 minutes. We better start heading that way. I'm like, we should have been there like 6 hours ago. But like, whenever I remember when episode 3 came out, the theaters were not going to allow anyone to camp. So I said, fine, that's fine. I won't camp. I still got there at 3 o'clock in the morning. It didn't start till midnight. I got there at 3 a.m. The night cleaning crew, when I was talking to the guy later, he said that they were literally sitting across the street at Steak and Shake. They had just left, and nobody else, not a single other person showed up until almost 1 or 2 in the afternoon, I think. But it's all about just the experience. I mean, you meet so many cool people, like-minded people going to a premiere. And so this whole like assigned seating, buy your tickets ahead of time, that I hate that.
So we went on to the experience but I want to get it back to Star Wars. So in the Star Wars, in all of the movies, all of them, no series, because, you know, I will totally pick The Mandalorian and do scenes from that. But out of Star Wars, do you have like favorite scenes? Like a scene that you're like this is what iconic amazingness.
For me, it's probably the Sarlacc scene from Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
That as a kid, that was just that I reenacted that whole scene a million times. I obsessed over it. But I mean, and it's such a simple scene looking back on it now, but there's just something about that scene that I've always like, that was Star Wars to me.
Right.
What about you?
Basically, with the first movie, I know my friends and I, we reenacted the trying to shoot yourself way out of the Death Star. So the whole scene where Han Solo charges and all of that. So we would try to do things with that. You know, all of us were asking for the Kenner action figures for Christmas and everything else. I mean, that was huge. So you would get you'd set those things up, you'd play with that. But the scene that probably does it the most for me is the Luke, I'm your father scene. The battle in Bespin in Cloud City, and then having him hang there and shouting, no! because Luke is such a whiny brat. He just is.
Oh
Oh my God.
I love Luke. I always wanted to be Luke, but Luke's such a horrible whiny brat.
better. Hey, that's better.
Yeah.
I recently installed lights, so I'm stealing them to light myself with. Sorry, though, I was blinding myself with my own face.
Yeah,
So
it was huge. Yeah, there's a lot of light there. So, how
There
about for
we
you?
go.
What's your favorite scene?
that's much better.
So of the original three, I would say Luke, like the Vader admitting he's the father. I think that was like, I remember being really young and like going, what? No. And you knew it was coming. Like I knew it was coming. It was just that moment, like you see it in his face, like no. And I don't know. I dislike Luke as a character.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I do.
So you dislike him, or you just like him?
What?
You said you dislike him, or you just like him? Don't like him.
I
Okay.
did not like him as a character. I think, like, out of the original, Luke is my least favorite character. Out of the prequels, I like Anakin when he's a little kid. I don't like Anakin as the grown-up Anakin. I like Anakin as a little kid because I think it's cute. Listen, I'm a mom. My kid wants to be him. It's nostalgic. Leave it alone. Don't give it that.
So Amanda's got a comment for us.
But you know, in the new ones, my least favorite character is the girl. So I'm sorry. The main
That's a good
characters are
thing.
always my least favorite. I like the side characters so much more.
That is a good scene. I agree with Amanda. That's a really good scene in the new ones. I actually, one of the other scenes I always come back to is Leia choking Jabba to death.
Yeah,
That I just love that. Her girl power there is like, okay, you can chain me up, but then when it comes down to it, I'm killing you, and we're done with it.
Right. Leia, I like General Leia. I like it after, like, I like her as like the seasoned warrior Leia.
Right.
She was always a badass. Like, don't get me wrong. And Carrie Fisher was exactly that in real life. I met her once. She cursed like a sailor. I always think I curse a lot, but Carrie Fisher was like,
she did. And she
Oh
flipped
my
everybody off too. It's kind of funny.
yeah. But I just like, she was always what I thought a princess should be like. And growing up, I love that they called her a princess. And because I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so we had like the Disney princesses, and they're like all sweet and stuff, but none of them are like fighting for their own thing. They all get saved by a prince. And Leia, yeah, she gets saved, but she also saves herself a lot, and she saves other people a lot. So for a girl, that was like kind of important to me.
They don't
like,
make
to
it
see
off
somebody...
the Death Star without her. She's the one who gets them. She finds the way to the trash compactor. She actually is the only one who's hitting any stormtroopers when she's firing at them. It's hysterical.
Well,
You're like,
so smarmy and cocky as well. I mean, just Han's boasting about how awesome the escape was. It's just, they're tracking us. You really think they'd let us go that easy?
Right. Like, so what did
Thought I
you guys
smelled your
think?
foul stench when I was brought on board.
What did you guys when
I love that.
it came out that Luke and Leia were siblings? Like, did you guys, when you first watched it, were you guys like freaked out? But I was freaked out a little bit by that because of the whole because the whole love triangle thing.
Yeah. I mean, I was like 5, 6 years old, so I mean, I didn't really register until years later. But like that, nobody really ever talked about the whole kiss thing until, I don't know, like mid 90s. All of a sudden, like everyone was like, well, he kissed her, and it was, and then it became a big deal. Before that, you never heard anything about it.
Well, I didn't. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't like she made out with him. It was a kiss,
Right.
and it was trying to make Han jealous. So
Right.
she didn't know that she was her.
Have you
her
seen the
sister
deleted
at the
scene?
time.
Her part totally makes
No.
sense. His part though, he was crushing on his own sister. I'm just saying.
You can find it on YouTube, but there's an extended version of that scene where they go back into it and are about to actually start making out. And then I think it's C-3PO walks in and interrupts, or Han and Chewie or somebody, but somebody walks in and interrupts them. But yeah, that extended scene, if that had been in the movie, there would have been no sibling. Or if there had, it would have been really weird.
Yeah, they're from Arkansas.
Who's your favorite character? Not Jar Jar. You can't say Jar Jar.
Can't say least favorite character. Can't say Jar Jar. Wow.
Because I think that's pretty much everybody's least favorite character is Jar Jar.
Well, no. Everyone's least favorite character in our age group is Jar Jar. Like younger people.
I disagree. Actually, Jar Jar. I wouldn't say Jar Jar. I actually dislike Rose more than I dislike Jar Jar. I at least understood the purpose of Jar Jar.
Right, Jar.
I'm gonna have to say Rose. Honestly, it was just such a forced-in character. And I mean, it had nothing to do with the whole, like she got a lot of flack for being a girl or being Asian or whatever. It was just the character served no purpose. They shoehorned this character in just to have Finn have a partner to go off with and try to force in some kind of weird love story thing that made no sense. It didn't have a purpose at all. You could have completely removed that character altogether and it would not have affected the movie in any way, shape, or form. That's why I don't like her. Jar Jar at least served a purpose. Love him or hate him.
Well, I hated him, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, he was annoying. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah, he was annoying. So
the thing is I was lucky enough to see this through my own eyes growing up, and then my kid was like, when did the prequels come out? Like 97?
99. First one came out 99.
Dakota was 4.
Right.
Or 5 when it came out. He loved Jar Jar. and a lot of people his age, he was a character for kids. It was a character for kids in a movie made for kids in a first chapter that was supposed to be a cartoon. That's why I loved him. And everybody's always like, oh, they should have killed off Jar Jar. Personally, I think the fact that Jar Jar was responsible for the creation of the Empire, that's justification enough, as far as I'm concerned. Right.
Somebody else would have done it if it wasn't him.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but Larry, besides Jar Jar, who's your least favorite character?
I don't. Most of the characters I like, at least at some level. Gosh, who do I really not like? That's really kind of hard for me to.
C.O. Bibble. You must contact me.
He's like, that's okay. You don't have one after me too.
Yeah, other than Jar Jar, some of my dislike is people, but you're supposed to. So, I really don't like Grand Moff Tarkin, but you're not supposed to like him. But his character is amazing in the movie. So, all right, here's a
thing. I like villains. I like the bad guys. I like the people you're supposed to hate. Like
my son does too. My son loves Kylo. I mean, he loved Darth Vader before. He loves Kylo now. So
my favorite, probably my favorite Star Wars character overall has got to be the guy with the dumbest first name I've ever heard for being such a badass character, but Mr. Sheev Palpatine himself.
Yeah.
I love Ian McDermott just hamming it up.
Oh.
Behind the scenes.
Do you see Amanda's comment?
Yeah.
As as a fan at that point, that's what I thought too. So you asked what my thoughts, people's thoughts were. I actually was disappointed that they ended up brother and sister because I thought they'd end up together. But I went, okay, you know.
But the princess and the scoundrel,
which is cool.
But to be fair, you can't have two princesses in a relationship. Like Luke was such a whiny baby.
Hating on Luke there. So
Sorry,
you know,
guys.
it is interesting that according to the books, Yoda actually wanted to train Leia, not Luke, and ended up Luke. And looking at it, what did Leia? Leia and Luke are the same age. Luke is playing with his airplane. Leia is in the Senate trying to steal plans and destroy the Empire from the inside. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Leia, like, I think a lot of times in movies, like, fans want two people to be together because they just like the idea. Harry Potter is a great movie series that people hated, who ended up with who and that sort of thing. But you've got to look at it as Leia and Luke would have been a terrible couple. They would have been a terrible couple. She would have, like, I feel like she would have, like, left him. Like, she would have been with him for like 2 years and then left.
Are you saying that because she was like a level-headed senator that's trying to destroy the Empire from the inside, trying to outdo corruption, and because he was a whiny brat? Is that why you're saying it wouldn't have worked out? Because if that's what you're saying, may I point your direction back towards the prequels when that exact same thing happened?
Cyclical.
I have problems with prequels too. Okay?
Like poetry, so they rhyme.
So anyway, I think, you know, if they were together, Luke would just do whatever Leia said and use his powers to do whatever, but Leia would lead that with her being with Han. Then you get the two big personalities clashing, where Luke would just be like, okay, this is what she wants to do, this is what we'll do.
Right. Yeah.
So, or they'd get in a fight and he'd go hide on an island for 30 years. You know, whatever.
Hey, well, but you know, Obi-Wan does that. Yoda did that. It's kind of what the Jedi do. You screw up and then you go hide somewhere.
I'm trying to think of like a good Star Wars question that would spark a good debate, but like, let's look at the sequel trilogy for a moment.
Yeah.
If you could change one and only one thing about the sequels, what would you change?
If you could change,
you could only change one thing about the sequel trilogy, what would it be? What?
I would make Luke more like Obi-Wan rather than making him hiding out. But
yeah,
I kind of, once they did that and I thought about it, I'm like, okay. I mean, it's a different way to go. I didn't love it, but it kind of like, okay, I can deal with that. So I didn't hate it. I wasn't like some of our friends and just hated all the sequels and, you know, lambasted Disney.
They were entertaining.
I enjoyed them, yeah, and I thought that it brought the series, that middle one kind of sticks out a little bit. I kind of like that it went against the grain, because I usually like movies that do that, but when you're trying to tell a story, it kind of seems out of place.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen, was it Colin Trevorrow? Is that his name? I would have loved to have seen his version of Episode 9. If you've read this, if you haven't read the script for Duel of the Fates, look it up, read it. It would have been amazing. But the one thing that I would have changed, I mean, you can keep everything else the way that it happened. I'm fine with that. I didn't hate Episode 8 like everybody else did. I think it's kind of weird that Luke just dies because he used the Force too hard, but whatever. But Rise of Skywalker, my theory on what that title meant, I'm fine with Rey being, you know, a Palpatine, all that fun stuff. Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen it. But like that end scene, just grates my nerves so bad. Who are you? I'm Rey Skywalker. You just because you decided to be? No.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if she had just said, okay, let the Jedi die, the Jedi are no more. It's not about the light or the dark. It's just about the Force. And the new Force users are kind of like a gray type of thing that are now called Skywalker instead of Jedi. That is what that should have meant.
So my problem with the end of it was when she says Skywalker as well, and Shpoo and I've talked about this. And then Luke and Leia appear in the clouds. Because they made the Kylo and her have this like romantic connection kind of thing, I think it would have made more sense to have him in the clouds than Luke and Leia, just Luke and Leia. Like I think it would, but it's like I don't know why she calls herself Skywalker. She barely, like, she was trained by Luke and Leia. They don't really go into as much of the training with Leia as they wanted to because Carrie Fisher's untimely death. But she was trained by both of them, but not for that long. It's not like
she barely knew
by them for. I know, and so I'm like, why call yourself? Why not just come up with a?
It would have made more sense for her to call herself Rey Solo than it would have to call herself Rey Skywalker.
That's what I said. I think if she would have said Rey Solo, I would have liked it better. I understand it was called The Rise of the Skywalker. That's the whole point. Blah blah blah. I don't hate these movies as much as a lot of people do, but that part bothered me so much. And I think that if they would have had Kylo Ren in the clouds and she would have said Rey Solo and his hand was extended, then it would have made more sense that she adopted a different name.
Yeah.
I just
and with that
such a connection with the.
What you mentioned there with his hand extended, that would call back to he's done that multiple times trying to get her to join up with him. That would have hammered that home as well. It would have tied up that loose end. That would have been a nice callback.
Well, and that's one scene that if I could change in the new movies, I would have changed. I would have changed that end scene. I think it would have made his arc and her arc in relation to each other complete.
Yeah. I guess the book does go a little bit more. I guess the book does go a little bit more into why Ben doesn't appear. I can't remember off the top of my head what it says, but I know it's like whenever he, right before he fades out, he does tell her, I'll always be with you. And so there is, I would have to look it up. I can't remember now. But it does mention something in the book whenever Luke and Leia appear there that does say like why Ben doesn't physically appear. But that did make sense. But it should have been. That's one of those. I have this whole gripe, and I'm actually working on a series of videos about this, about like things in recent movies that have to be explained after the fact, like after Endgame, Rise of Skywalker, two of the biggest culprits of that. But just you shouldn't have to explain your movie after it's over. That's the whole purpose of a movie. But yeah.
Yeah, so no, that's the scene I would change, and that's how I would change it. I would have just had Ben in the sky, like have Luke and Leia there, that's fine, and have his hand extended, and I think it would have summed it up. I do understand that in the book he says that and blah blah blah, but that's not something you see. You have him fade away. And then she assumes another name. Why is she assuming the name of two people that she didn't have an actual connection with? Like, she got trained by them a little bit, but she didn't have an emotional connection. She had an emotional connection to Ben. They were connected to the point that they could
in more ways than one.
Things, Yeah.
So play devil's advocate just for a moment with that. Just barely. So, Luke really only knew Obi-Wan as this hermit that lived out in the middle of nowhere, and then runs off with him. The first thing that happens is Ben goes his own way and gets killed by Vader. Yet it's traumatic for Luke in Star Wars. He could hear his voice afterwards, and then Ben keeps appearing to him. You could make the same argument that Luke really didn't know Ben Kenobi at all, or Obi-Wan.
Sure.
And they've, that's one of those things through that original trilogy but
That's
it's
true.
that connection there.
I will give you that, but I don't think Luke would have changed his name.
Well, and that's true, but he didn't need to at that point because the name Palpatine, you're not going to use that name after even all this time because the Emperor was such a force in society that people were going to.
Well, and when you really think about it, kind of on that same point there, that scene doesn't make a lot of sense for so many reasons. But like, here you have this old woman coming up. Well, who are you? Well, I'm Rey. Well, what's your last name? Long extended pause while she looks at a ghost that only she can see, presumably, while this old woman's just sitting here like, what's she doing? But then she says Skywalker, and it's supposed to be like hammering that home because she's back on Luke's farm, except that wasn't the Skywalker farm. Right. It was the large farm. Right. That was never the Skywalker farm. So that makes no sense.
But here's the thing. She goes her whole life without a last name, without knowing her real last name. So why now adopt? Like, that's my problem with the movie. I know that's my problem, like one scene, because I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get her reasoning for it. She should just be Rey. Then if she doesn't want to be Rey Palpatine, she's never been Rey Palpatine. She didn't know she was related to him. Like, none of that was known to her. Just Rey. Or if she wanted to pick another last name, Solo would have been the best to go through.
You picture that scene. You picture that scene going on for like an extra 3 seconds, and she's like the long dramatic pause, Rey Skywalker, and then you just cut back to the old woman. And she's just like, "Oh well, welcome to the farm. See you later." I mean, it would have just been the funniest thing ever.
The name Skywalker, though, is supposed to represent, the new life of the Jedi coming in. So I get why go with that name because Luke and then Leia both being very important to you, being very central pieces, not only of your training, but of what you're looking up and saying, the Empire is gone because of these guys. These were the most important people to the rebellion, and now you've lived through with the Resistance and everything else. So I could see doing that. If I'm going to pick a name, I'm going to pick, something kind of cool that people know. If I'm going to adopt something, I don't know. Now, I'm not arguing it was right. I'm just saying I can live with it. There's worse things. Here, Amanda has got another comment, and then we've got another comment after that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, actually, was he? I mean, yes, he was being brainwashed and trained to be a stormtrooper, but extended material, be it comic books, whatever, all suggest that was actually his first mission as a stormtrooper.
Right.
But again, that's one of those things that the movie does not tell you.
But that's the problem, is the movie doesn't tell you that. So you're just like, you're a stormtrooper, and you're like, you're not. Yeah. No.
Well,
so,
they allude in what his job was.
That goes into the whole episode 9 thing where with Finn saying, there's something I got to tell you, and then he never tells her, even though it comes up 2 or 3 more times with Poe asking, what was you were going to tell her? Later, whatever. Then they meet all these other stormtroopers, and they all say that they put their weapons down at the last minute, and it's like one of those things that was explained by the movie makers that like the stormtroopers that they're taking as kids, they were taking them to become stormtroopers because they were force sensitive. Right. So like all of the stormtroopers in the First Order are Jedi potentially. I mean, force users. That's insane. All right, it's Shpoo, not Choop, but I'll take it. It's cool.
Hi, Misty or Roselle. I'm not a huge like Star Wars fan, so you guys have all these like inside things. Shpoo's always telling me, he's like, this is what I read and this is like the book and stuff, and I'm like, okay, but they just put this in the movie. It would have been For us people who are fans, but
we
not
keep
like,
going back and forth. It's unfortunate that like the Last Jedi and stuff like that, kind of that it got such a bad reaction. Rian Johnson was going to get his own trilogy. The Game of Thrones guys were going to get their own trilogy. We were supposed to get an Old Republic trilogy, which I was really looking forward to. And it looks like a lot of those things probably won't happen now because Solo did so bad and Last Jedi didn't do so great. And that's truly unfortunate because like some of my favorite Star Wars stuff is like Darth Revan and the Old Republic stuff. Those stories are phenomenal, and I would love to see them on screen. So it kind of sucks.
Who knows? Disney Plus might do something.
Well, and with the popularity of the Mandalorian. So talking about the extra movies, how do you guys feel about Solo and also about
Rogue One?
Yeah.
Rogue One, I thought was kind of a story that didn't need to be told. It was, you know how it ends before it even starts. We got the plans. That was the first thing we saw in Star Wars.
Well, sure.
So, while it's exciting to see how they got the plans, it took itself way too seriously. There was no fun in it. Fine, a dark Star Wars. I'm cool with the dark Star Wars. I have no problem with that. But just, I don't know. Just it seemed like every line of dialogue in that movie was written to be in a trailer. And then Solo comes along. I actually thought Solo was a lot of fun. It did terrible at the box office, but I thought it was pretty enjoyable.
So
I think it did terrible because of Last Jedi. I think there were people that didn't go see it just because they were mad about Last Jedi.
And I mentioned oversaturation earlier. Like it was fine whenever you had a 2-year gap between Episode 7 and Episode 8. And then, but at the 1 year, so it was like Episode 7 comes out. 1 year later, we get Rogue One. 1 year after that, we get Episode 8. But then it was Episode 8 came out in December. Solo came out in May. It only had 5 months to be excited about the next Star Wars movie. And it was too much, too quick.
I don't disagree with that. Now I'm going to show you my glass I'm drinking out of. Oh, there it is, right there. So I've got actually Rogue One glasses. So I actually really like Rogue One.
I've got a generous and actually, hold on.
I was gonna say I used to work in a movie theater. He's got a lot of cups.
So I've got which way? There we go. I got the Generoso cup. I got 3 of them here actually. One for each of them. And I also have 3 of these from Solo.
Yeah. And I thought I liked what Solo did because Solo took itself as a different type of Star Wars movie. Very much how Marvel had done that with making superhero movies that weren't always just straight superhero movies. Captain America Winter Soldier is more of a action crime movie. Ant-Man's more of a daddy-daughter movie on 2 different levels. So Marvel's done that quite a bit, making movies that are just, Guardians of the Galaxy is basically Star Wars, but with Marvel characters.
Well, and this is kind of what I thought was the main problem when it came to like the prequels is like the original Star Wars movies. Yes, you've got tons of action, sci-fi, adventure, all of these things, but there was always an element of like comedy basically in there. Yes. Not just straight up slapstick or anything like that, but like you had, Han being his smart ass self, Leia was kind of a smart ass as well. So there was always an element of humor in there. Then the prequels come out, took themselves way too seriously. Right. But you had like everyone acting like robots and then Jar Jar. So it was too big of a contrasting thing. But then that's where the sequels got it right, was because they brought the humor back in. Well, then Rogue One comes out, takes itself too seriously. Solo was a lot of fun. Yeah. It was just a fun movie. It just didn't do great.
Well,
And
it's a great hype movie set in the Star Wars universe. I really enjoyed it. So I never understood the criticism of Solo. I mean, I got some of the other criticism. I've enjoyed all of them, and I take it as chapters as you guys do. Some of them I like better. Phantom Menace is probably my least favorite, but the end fight, the Duel of Fates fight, is worth the price of admission right there. And the pod race is cool too. So you have moments that where I'm like, okay, you can't hate
it. Just went on for too long.
Right there, so cool.
I thought the pod race was great. It just went on for way too long.
Right.
But yeah, that end fight was beautiful. I mean, you take that and then set it up against like the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan at the end of episode 3. Yeah. It's like, yes, here's another beautifully choreographed scene, but like there's so much crap in the background going on that it deflated all the emotion that should have been in that fight. So here you have in the very first movie, 3 guys that aren't even here. Well, 2 guys that aren't here, I guess. And then Obi-Wan. And it's the best fight out of all 9 movies. It's the best fight. Arguably.
No, I agree with you. I think it is. So,
well, it's the prettiest fight. I shouldn't say it's the best fight. It's the prettiest fight. The best fight's Luke and Vader at the end of Jedi, because there was just so many emotions wrapped up in that fight. And it was just pure rage. You didn't need all the pretty, flourishing, all that stuff. It was just all about the emotion.
And I like the fight scene in Rise of Skywalker also. That end fight scene is actually really cool. I'm very pleased with that. So, I don't hate on those like what a lot of people do. I think that I like them all. My friend Brian, who's one of our contributors, really dislikes Attack of the Clones. He just hates that movie. And I'm like, he's like, well, we were promised these big Jedi fights, and we get that they're fighting bugs and animals, and there's nothing really that I'm like, okay, I get that, because it had to be what's built up in his head on what he was going to get versus what actually was there.
I have an Attack of the Clones question mainly for you, Larry, but Yoda walks in, right? We finally get to see Yoda fight. So he walks into the room, Dooku is standing there, and they're kind of throwing insults back and forth at each other. And Yoda says to him, something like, much you have to learn, my old apprentice.
Right.
What did he mean by that? Because I have a different interpretation of that than pretty much anybody else I've ever talked
to. Well, I just kind of took it for him being able to, that Dooku has gone down this path, so little does he really fully understand, because Dooku's saying, the power of the dark side, blah, blah, blah. Little do you know how powerful the light side is also, because you never got yourself to that point that you would understand that. But how do you take it?
Most people took that to think that Yoda trained Dooku.
Right.
I'm like, that's not what he meant. He's insulting him. He's like, you think that the dark side is honestly better? You're still an apprentice.
Right. Well, and actually from the stuff, he did train him, but that I get what you're saying there. You still have
trained everybody, apparently.
Unlike where Vader disses Obi-Wan in Star Wars by saying, I was once, you were once the master and I was the apprentice. Now I am the master. So he's flipping it around.
Yeah. Just a thing.
I'm just sitting here listening to you guys. I have very little.
We'll watch Star Wars tonight. It's all good.
I'm just going to sit here in the middle of you two and just let you guys talk.
Well, we need to wrap it up. If we want to, next week we could talk about the series. We could talk Clone Wars, Rebels, all of those, because it's the day after Star Wars Day, and
I'm actually rewatching Clone Wars now. Actually,
yeah, the first season of Clone Wars is a little clunky, but after that, it gets really good.
Yeah.
I think I am challenging you two both of you, to write an article for GeekyKOOL this week about Star Wars. About something.
Well, I think I can handle that.
About Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, look.
I think that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, if there is a future to the Star Wars universe, they need to take it over.
Yeah.
Give the boot to Kathleen Kennedy and let those two take it over.
I think there definitely is. It's still a very popular thing. My son, who's 11, is still enamored with it. I mean, we watch Clone Wars every week. The new episodes are on. We watched Mandalorian religiously. He's still all about Star Wars. So I think you got a really bright thing. Just don't ruin it. But Mandalorian proved that you could go without ruining it for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait for season 2. And apparently, I saw a really cool thing is actually going to come out. Like, we have to wait almost a year for season 2 to come out, but I guess season 3 is going to come out a lot quicker than 2 did, or I saw something about that where they're going to start shooting 3 here pretty soon to get a head start. So I don't know, and I cannot wait to see Rose daughter. What's her? I can't think of her name. Rose. Oh my God. Playing Ahsoka.
Oh yeah.
What is her name? I went totally blank on her name.
I know you're talking about
Rose.
Oh. Look, Amanda agrees with you.
Oh my God, it's like one of my favorite actresses, and I just totally went blank on it. Anyway,
it's gonna.
Dawson.
But I challenge both of you guys.
Rosario Dawson. There we are.
Star Wars 4.
Very good.
And I guess if we're gonna wrap this up, we need to mention some of our friends.
We do. Let's flip over to their stuff here. Yeah. Where would you like to start?
First of all, we're gonna start with Tim and Josh, the Nerd Informants. If you guys like anything, go check out the Nerd Informants. The great guys. They always bring some weird stuff to you and everything. They're on YouTube and Facebook. They do some live videos. They do movie reviews when they have movies coming out. But right now they're doing a lot of gaming and stuff like that because they're stuck at home. But go check them out and tell them AJ and the professor sent you. And then we also have Keith and Gary over at Pop. I always get it. I always want to say it reversed. Is it Pop Culture Minefield, right? Hello? Is it froze up? Did Larry freeze up? I feel like he froze up.
Either that or he's just staring into the void. Hello, darkness, my old friend.
There should be a little thing at the bottom, but I think Larry's having technical difficulties. So go check them out. They are not as kid-friendly as we are. They're not nearly. Yeah, and Larry's gone. But go check them out over at Pop Culture Minefield. They're on YouTube. They have a Facebook page and everything. They have some great guests. They know everybody in the business. And then you always can go check out Shpoo over at Skallywag Productions on YouTube. We have links to all these and all of our other videos. Like I said, Professor's gone, so the banner is not changing. It's just stuck on Nerd Informants. And then check us out on GeekyKOOL.com. We have all kinds of articles. We do videos. We post Shpoo's videos when he does them. And all kinds of fun things.
Normally is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Getting some work done at the house, so that's been a little more sporadic. So there will not be a video tomorrow, for example, but probably will be one Friday, and then it should be back to normal.
We're hoping. I actually, every time Shpoo posts videos, you will see them on GeekyKOOL almost this last couple weeks. I haven't been myself, so I haven't been posting them on there for him, but be sure to check that out. And guys, I can't see any comments because Professor has all those on his thing, so I can't see if anybody's saying anything. But check us all out, and we love you guys. Be safe, and may the 4th be with you. See, look, I had to do it in a joke.
Yeah, right. That was it. Should have just went black screen right there.
I would have, but I can't because I don't have the control. So we're gonna leave this broadcast, guys. Go check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and on GeekyKOOL.com. Bye.
So wait, so until he comes back on, like I could just sit here and like stare at the screen and it would just keep broadcasting until he comes on and ends it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
We have
Get
stuff to
comfy,
do.
guys. No, I'm good. All right, I don't know how to leave this thing. So,
There's a little button at the bottom that says leave. You just click it.
okay. So yeah, come see, check me out on YouTube and stuff. So, bye.
Yeah. Oh God. All right, bye guys. Check us out.
All right, guys, I'm sorry. Had a power surge, had some lightning, and the power flicked there. So the broadcast continued even though my router was shut down and wasn't able to continue the broadcast. So I'd like to thank Shpoo from Skallywag Productions for coming on. And I know AJ was in the middle of talking about the Nerd Informants. So make sure you do check out the Nerd Informants. Those guys are great. We want to shout out to Keith and Gary over at Pop Culture Minefield. Check them out over on YouTube. They are not necessarily PG all the time, but they are very funny. So check them out. And of course, Shpoo, who was on with us over at Skallywag Productions, for all the great work he does, and he helps us out a lot. Yes, they did just go off, and part of that reason was because of the power surge. Since I'm actually hosting from my place, that power surge knocked that out for us. So that's going to be all for tonight. Thanks again for AJ, aka Ace, and always being my partner, always willing to come on, even talking about things that she doesn't necessarily love as much as the rest of us, which is okay. That's all right. That's the great thing about being a geek, is you can geek out on all sorts of different things. So she's a trooper coming on and talking with us, and Shpoo for coming in, talking Star Wars, letting us ramble on about the movies for a little bit. We will be on next Tuesday at 6:30, and we will hopefully won't have any power surges and knock anything off. But yeah, it just looks like we're going to talk the Star Wars series. Maybe even get them to talk a little bit about the holiday special. The much maligned and understandably maligned holiday special, along with talking about The Mandalorian, The Clone Wars, Rebels, and all the different animated series from Star Wars that are out there. All of them are pretty dang good. So we'll talk about that next week. Happy Star Wars Day to you guys on next Monday, because we won't be on till Tuesday. And again, make sure you check out David Fout on Facebook for his thing from Sunday from 2 to 4. That will be really good. And thank you guys again for watching. Have a great evening. Stay geeky.